Coming up on West Michigan Live, the West Michigan real estate market is looking good. It's time for some good economic news. We'll do that next year on West Michigan Live.
This is West Michigan Live with Neil Dion on News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
Pleasure to be with you this morning. Thank you for listening. As many of you know, I'm not an economist by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just a stupid disc jockey. But I did read a press release the other day that I found fascinating, and I wanted to expand on that just a little bit. And this has to do with the West Michigan real estate market, primarily the business sector of this. We have Stu Kingma with us with NAI Wisinski of West Michigan. And there's an awful lot of information here, Stu, so I wasn't able to absorb it all. But from what I understand, in commercial real estate, for example, 15 was a pretty darn good year. I mean, we know that it was from the residential side, which is not really what you do. But do these two sectors ever mirror each other?
Well, good morning, Neil. And yes, they do in this particular case. While you indicate you're not an economist, neither am I. But what I can tell you is about the commercial real estate market dating back through 2015, and then maybe we can spend a little bit of time on what we see going forward into 2016. In the commercial real estate world, there's really four primary sectors that we focus on tracking, and those are the industrial market, which includes manufacturing and warehousing, the office market, which includes downtown, central business district offices, and then the suburbs. Retail, we've all been to retail stores, the 28th Streets, the Granvilles, the Knaps, the East Beltlines of the world, and then the multifamily, the apartments, both downtown and out in the suburbs. And so I'll touch briefly on each one of those four sectors. Certainly, if you have a question at some point, let me know. I'll try and expand on it. The industrial market in the West Michigan region has about 150 million square feet. And for most people, that number's not going to mean a lot. But of that 150 million square feet, approximately 110 million is the Kent County, Grand Rapids region. The rest of that is out on the lakeshore. Beginning in 2015, at the very end of 14, the vacancy rate in that sector was running about 4.8%, which historically is a very, very good number. Yeah. At the depth of the Great Recession, that approached 10%, and so it was a significant improvement from 2008, 2009, 2010. Yeah. At the end of 2015, that number dropped to 4.1. And so we picked up a significant amount of percentage vacancy in 2015. We're now at 4.1, so very little space is available is the net effect of that. What we're finding with our clients that need space is they're challenged when they look in the marketplace for it. It's requiring creative solutions, taking bigger buildings and making them into smaller units for some customers. We're actually now, for the first time in a half dozen years or so, seeing a migration toward new land sales. Customers that can't find buildings that suit their business's needs are now forced into the marketplace and are going to start to construct these new buildings. And we hadn't seen construction of new industrial buildings for a significant period of time. And so that's part of the creative solution, I guess, that I speak to, is if we can't find what exists today that solves our problem from a business perspective need, we're going to end up having to build it.
Well, at least in that case, you can build exactly what will fill your needs, and then you're providing tons of employment.
That is correct. The general contractors in the area have been busy for some time now, certainly on renovations, and now that is migrating toward new construction. We hadn't seen a speculative building constructed in Grand Rapids in some time, and during 2015, I counted 8 or 9 of them. And so that's a significant change in the market, which, as you point out, is providing employment for our local contractors, our trades, and those folks are really busy right now.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of curious about two particular new creations. One would be the Tanger Outlet, for example.
Yep.
A lot of activity apparently planned next year in that particular geographic area.
Yep, and to that point, and why don't we transition then to the retail sector of the marketplace. Getting back to that square footage number, while there's 150 million square feet of industrial, there's only about 17 million square feet of retail, so significantly less. The vacancy rate at the end of 2015 was just about 11%, so a higher vacancy rate across all areas of the retail markets. But to your point, there were some big openings last year in the West Michigan region, the Tanger Outlet Mall certainly being the one that generated the most excitement and press. And I think retail activity, judging from some of the traffic concerns that we heard about there, but also Trader Joe's. Fresh Market showed up last year, Slo's Barbecue here downtown, which I've not been to yet, but certainly understand.
I stood in line.
Yeah, well, I think that I did in the Detroit one at one point, and certainly I suspect it's excellent here as well. But going into 2016, and to your point, with Tanger bringing that kind of critical mass in terms of people movement, certainly there's going to be offshoots in terms of restaurants and other ancillary retail-type businesses. We're going to see the same thing, candidly, out on Knapp and the East Beltline. There's continued new development there, and the outlook activity for restaurants and other businesses of that sort is going to remain good. The growth in the employment picture here, and as you may know, we're at a really, really healthy unemployment number here. We're certainly below national averages. Certainly drives the retail market, and we're seeing that effect.
Do you suppose the double-digit vacancy rate for retail space has anything to do with the growth of internet sales and commerce?
Certainly it's been well documented that many folks are turning to their keyboards now as opposed to getting into the car to go buy shoes, clothes, and all manner of retail goods. And so certainly there is a subset of that vacancy rate that I think is driven by that, although the flip side of that is that still doesn't provide the shopper with an experience of actually going out, which a lot of people still view as a significant part of the process of buying. The other part that I think drives some of that higher vacancy rates is there's areas in town that are a little bit less attractive for retail than others. In the past, they were kind of Main and Main. Well, Main and Main moves around in the retail sector. Years ago, Granville didn't have a mall. And when Granville didn't have a mall, everyone went to other locations. Now that Granville has critical mass, while the economy in West Michigan has grown, it's still, and the pie has grown, Granville took a piece of that pie, and so that's leaving some retail areas that maybe are a little bit more vacant than they ordinarily would have been.
I think access is probably an issue, too, because M6 made it possible for people to leave their neighborhoods and actually get somewhere without going through 100 stoplights.
That's an excellent point. M6, and speaking of the Lakeshore and how M6 has impacted that, the Howland Mall was successful for years and then fell into some hard times. And that was driven primarily because the Granville Mall opened. You could drive from Howland to Granville. They're now in the process of, in our industry, called demalling the Howland Mall, getting rid of the interior corridors and making it more of a power center. I drove past that last week, and that process is well underway. And so you'll see those kinds of transitions continue to take place as time goes forward.
Let me ask you about the downtown environment specifically. In days past, almost all of the commerce was on Main Street in a downtown area. We then saw the explosion of retail moving out to suburbs, and I don't know what business models people are creating for the downtown. I know that obviously the commerce is doing very well with the explosion in restaurants, for example. All of the new building, the condos and apartments and things, old warehouses, they're being transformed into rentals. And all of that, but you're not seeing a migration of businesses back to the downtown.
Well, you've certainly seen a success story here in downtown Grand Rapids, and there's really a couple of components to that, Neil. First of all, and I'll touch on office, and then I'll get back specific to your question. Okay. The office market in general has done well downtown. Spaces are full, rents have increased, And there's a general sense of significant energy downtown. People want to be downtown.
Yeah.
But that's not just been confined to the central business district office user. People now want to live downtown, which for Grand Rapids over the last few years has been a significant source of activity and construction. Look out your window. You see cranes going up.
Yeah.
They're building new office space, but typically a big component of those new buildings also involves residences. And as critical mass from a downtown living perspective becomes more the norm, it's anticipated that you'll start to see some of that retail come back downtown. There's talk of, at some point, someone's going to pull the trigger on a grocery store downtown.
I'm hoping. We have a food desert, as they like to call it.
Understood. And the real issue there is the old adage, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? The people or the store? The store can't support itself without the people. But the people, in some instances, may be a little reluctant to move downtown without the amenities they can get close by in the suburbs. And so that's going to change, and that's going to happen at some point. It's just a process that needs to work its way forward. And I think it is here in Grand Rapids with the activity.
There are 60,000 people here who have to get in the car and drive 20 miles to go grocery shopping. So
that's an amazing statistic. There's no question about it. The question long-term becomes, where is the best location for that store? And then you need to have at some level critical mass for parking near that store as well. Some people don't need cars to get there and move back with public transit. But clearly the parking can be a question, both in terms of a retail environment, but also in terms of office space. We all, at least you and I assume, park downtown. It's not inexpensive.
No, it's not. It's not my favorite thing. I'm getting the bum's rush here. One final question then, Stu. Do we have a rosy outlook for 16? Is this trend going to continue?
I think for 2016, I think we're going to continue to see positive absorption. As we spoke earlier, before we were on air, the stock market certainly has got a black eye going into 2016. There's concerns about oil prices, China, growth in China, or the lack thereof. And so certainly there are some concerns on the horizon. The flip side of that is the automotive industry, which, like it or not, is still a dominant factor in Michigan, is forecasting a very strong 2016. And so I think for our region, we're going to continue to see positive absorption, positive growth, and in general, positive activity.
I love good news for a change. Great having you on the show, Stu. It's been a pleasure.
Well, Neil, I appreciate your time this morning, and certainly if you have questions in the future, pick up the phone and call.
I promise I'll do that. That's Stu Kingma with NAI Wisinski of West Michigan, and things are looking good. Appreciate some good news for a change. Return in a moment here on West Michigan Live News Radio, Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.